The rose in my hand dropped to the floor as I saw my fiancée, Anna Smith, in a wedding dress, lying on the bed with another man. Tomorrow was supposed to be our wedding day. I forced a bitter smile and said, "Do you know this is supposed to be our wedding suite?" Anna Smith, completely indifferent, replied, "If you're seeking excitement, might as well go all in. What are you going to do now that you found out? You're just a dog my dad raised. Do you really think you can divorce me?" I shook my head and turned to leave. She sneered and called me useless, but as I closed the door, I heard the sounds of them breathing heavily in the room. For years, I'd worked for her father, climbing the corporate ladder with each passing year, while Anna Smith believed she had me under her thumb. What she didn't know, however, her father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 6 months ago. I had taken all the power. With just one word from me, her family's empire would collapse. I made 2 calls. One was to inform all friends and family that the wedding was off tomorrow. The other was to my secretary, Alice, asking her to convey to all shareholders that, from this day forward, I would no longer be protecting the Smith family. The shareholders acted quickly. By the time I reached the downstairs lobby, Anna's driver was already rushing towards me. He bowed deeply, then climbed into the Porsche and drove off. The car and the driver had been gifts from other shareholders who had given them to please her father, Mr. Smith. Now, in their eyes, Anna was worthless. She was still upstairs, having sex with her lover, unaware that, from this moment on, not only would she never see that Porsche again, but she wouldn't even be able to sit a subway ride. Even this wedding suite had been a gift from a developer who, having heard about our wedding, wanted to befriend me. On paper, it was given to Anna. I had just gotten into my own car when I saw a group of property staff rushing upstairs. This 3,000-square-foot ocean view apartment was no longer something Anna could live in. Soon, she was dragged down by security, her clothes in disarray. She screamed desperately, "Don't touch me. What do you think you're doing? Do you know who my father is?" Her father? After I took the power, her father was nothing. Anna spotted me in the car. She broke free from the security guards and rushed to pound on my car window, shouting furiously, "George, what are you trying to pull? I'll tell my dad on you and make sure you lose everything." She still didn't understand. The one who would lose everything was her. The man beside her, clearly anxious, tried to reason with me. "George, this is my and Anna's fault, but you can't just kick her out of the house. Even a crow knows to feed its parents. Don't forget how her father promoted you all these years." I glanced at him. I knew him, Anna's first love from school, Henry. Anna had really loved him for so many years. I'd always known that when Henry was accepted to study abroad, Anna gave him her virginity. Back then, I worked tirelessly for the Smith family. Now, all I wanted was their fortune. I turned to my driver and calmly said, "Drive." The view outside the car began to recede, and I heard Anna frantically pounding on the window, screaming hysterically, "George. At the shareholders' meeting the day after tomorrow, I will clean up the mess and kick you out of the Smith Group." I chuckled. For all these years, people thought Mr. Smith was the one promoting me. But they'd forgotten that he built his fortune through smuggling and was caught evading taxes. It was my loyal father who took the fall for him, shouldering all the blame. Maybe Mr. Smith felt guilty, so he took me in as his godson. From the first day I entered the Smith family, Anna arrogantly told me, "They said your dad is just a loyal dog to my father. From now on, you're my loyal dog." That day, Mr. Smith laughed heartily, saying it was just childish talk and to not take it to heart. From that moment on, I lived for the Smith family. In front of her classmates, Anna called me puppy, making me carry her bag, do her homework. The slightest defiance, and she'd angrily announce to everyone, "You're just a bastard without a father. If it weren't for my dad feeding you, you'd have starved to death by now. And yet you don't know how to be grateful." When I wore new clothes, she had to make it known that my clothes were bought by her dad. That my pocket money came from him. I was always the loyal dog. When I grew up, I entered the Smith Group and soared to success. But every step I took was stained with invisible blood, eliminating every enemy who stood against Anna for Mr. Smith. I built a throne, just waiting for Anna to return. She spent all her time partying, while I paved the way for her, making sure that when she'd had enough of playing, she could sit comfortably in the big chair. Looking back, I'm grateful she spent all her time partying and neglected her own father. Or else how would I have ended up with such a vast fortune? The next day, Anna arrived, and she brought Henry with her. She slammed open my office door and yelled, so it's true, George, you actually had the guts to cancel the wedding. I glanced at her and said, what's the matter? Where's my dad? My cards are frozen, and Henry had to pay for the car here. I casually replied, the chairman is out of town on business. Of course, he wasn't on a business trip. He had long forgotten who he was and had already been placed in an overseas nursing home by me. Anna looked me in the eye. Then suddenly sneered, her rage turning into a twisted grin. I originally planned to kick you out of the company at tomorrow's shareholders meeting, but honestly, I can't stand looking at your face. It's just disgusting. Get out of that chair. It's Henry's now. She slammed a document down in front of me. I picked it up. It was a personnel appointment letter. Mr. Henry is hired as the assistant to the general manager, to take over as general manager upon his return. It was signed by Mr. Smith, dated exactly 6 months ago. Starting as assistant to the general manager. This was clearly aimed at my position, with the intention of having me teach him everything. Indeed, Mr. Smith had only ever seen me as a loyal dog of the Smith family. Anna sneered, let me tell you, this suit you're wearing? You'll only be able to wear it for another 3 months. This chair? It's Henry's. Henry, ever the hypocrite, chimed in, sorry, Anna said the company was busy and wanted me to help out. I didn't know it would turn out like this. I nodded and extended my hand. Welcome aboard. Henry shook my hand. His face beaming with victory. I retracted my hand. But you stepped into the office with your left foot, which is bad for the company's image. Go to HR and submit your resignation. Henry's smile slowly faltered. Anna's eyes widened in shock. You have some nerve. You actually fired Henry. I sat back in my chair, flipping through the documents, and said nonchalantly, is there a problem with me firing my assistant? Henry was still pretending. He forced a smile and said, George Miller. Shut up. Did you just call me George Miller? All right, Mr. George, he said. His tone growing more cautious. I understand you're angry, but this is Mr. Smith's appointment. If you fire me now, you'll look pretty bad at tomorrow's shareholders meeting. Will I? I pulled out my phone, turned on the camera, and studied my own face for a moment. Then, I said seriously, I think I look great. The most charming part is my chin. He froze, staring at me, dumbfounded. Anna, furious, slammed the documents on my desk onto the floor and cursed, George. Do you really think you're the CEO of my family? Let me tell you the truth, I only dated and agreed to marry you because my dad saw you built a team of elites. He wanted to win people over. Now that the company is on track, we don't need you anymore. I nodded. I had always known that. She sneered, you're about to become a pauper. Do you think I made you sign a prenuptial agreement for no reason? Whether we marry or divorce, the property's always been separate. Some people are pitiful, after the divorce, you won't even be able to afford instant noodles. At that, I couldn't help but laugh. I was actually thankful for the prenuptial agreement. You still dare laugh? Anna was about to explode, but I just stood up and adjusted my tie. Sorry, I have a meeting to attend. I'll have to excuse myself. Henry sighed. George, I know you're still having a hard time accepting this. I'll come back tomorrow to take up my post. Don't worry. You're talented. After 3 months, when I become CEO, I'll arrange for you to assist me. I didn't even bother to respond. I turned and walked out, dialing my secretary Alice. When she picked up, I asked, how's it going? Alice responded respectfully, starting tomorrow, the Smith family will be bankrupt. Good. Arrange a car for tomorrow morning. The shareholders meeting is in the morning. Where would you like to go? To the prison. Pick someone up. At the prison gates, I sat in the Maybach, reviewing the plan I'd prepared for tomorrow. As the prison doors opened, my father walked out, carrying a bag and dressed plainly. Alice quickly rushed to carry his bag, and he approached the car, running his hand over the door, sighing, Mr. Smith is so kind. Letting you ride in such an expensive car. I responded calmly, get in. He hesitated before getting into the car, awkwardly wiping the seat. I'm dirty. Don't want to stain Mr. Smith's car. George, I feel relieved seeing how well he's taken care of you. Taken care of me? I chuckled bitterly. When I was in middle school, Anna forced me to wash her feet so she could show off that she had a servant. She even made me drink the water she washed her feet with. When I refused, she slapped me in front of everyone. Mr. Smith found out. And all he did was tell her not to joke around. Is that what you call taking care of me? I studied hard and got into a prestigious university. But she needed someone to serve her, so she had me go to a third-rate school. While I was cleaning her dorm, she was in a hotel, waiting on Henry hand and foot. Later, when she became weak, she called on me like I was her servant. Is that what you call taking care of me? I'll never forget the taste of that foot water. I'll never forget the humiliation of being treated like that. My father's smile faded. He spoke quietly. You can't forget your gratitude. Look at you now, dressed in a suit, everything thanks to the Smith family. I didn't answer him. We no longer saw eye to eye. My father had been loyal to the Smith family for decades, obediently devouring whatever scraps they threw him. But I was different. I had suffered, endured humiliation, no one would ever walk over me again. I brought him here today so he could witness the fall of the Smith family with his own eyes, and watch me rise to the top. When the car pulled up in front of the Smith Group building, Anna and Henry were already waiting. As soon as my father saw Anna, he hurried toward her, lowering his head in humility. Anna, you've grown up so much. Anna looked at him with disdain. Who are you? Why do you know me? I'm your Uncle Miller. Mr. Smith came to visit me 5 years ago, showed me your photo, and I recognized you immediately. Anna's expression shifted, and she sneered, Uncle Miller, you really know how to raise your son. My father didn't catch her sarcasm and eagerly replied. It's all thanks to you and Mr. Smith's care. Anna shot me a haughty glance before suddenly saying to my father, I'm thirsty. Go buy me a bottle of water. Of course, I'll go right now. I watched my father scurry off to buy her water, and she shot me a cold smile. Did you see that? Your dad knows how to be a better servant than you. I stood at the door, patiently waiting for my father to return. He came back, panting heavily, holding a bottle of mineral water for Anna. Anna snatched the water from his hands and threw it on the ground. I want cold water. My father was startled and quickly said, I'll go buy it again. No need, I don't want it anymore. She gave me a provocative glance and walked into the company building. My father, looking flustered, returned to my side. He forced a smile and said, Miss Anna's temper is a bit much. Remember to buy it for her later. I softly replied, let's go, the meeting's about to start. I'll allow you to sit in. Shareholder meeting. All 12 shareholders were present, but the chairman's seat at the end of the table was empty. Anna sat in her chair, chewing gum, casually asking, where's my dad? I picked up the documents, adjusted the microphone, and said, today is the third quarter meeting for this year. Miss Anna has missed the first two, so I'll briefly summarize the major points. She lazily responded, the first time, I went abroad to find Henry. The second time, Henry had vacation and came back to see me. All the shareholders exchanged grim looks. This woman really had no pretense anymore. I cleared my throat and continued, in the first quarter, led the company into the internet sector, signing contracts with 85 influencers. Through promotions, we earned $40 million. In the second quarter, to save costs, we created our own exclusive influencers, developed viral marketing copy, and saved a significant amount on marketing expenses, making $70 million in profit. Suddenly, Anna raised her hand and interrupted me. Enough. You don't need to boast about your abilities in front of me. These were your responsibilities. Let me tell you, Henry could do all this, and he'd do it better than you. Her words caused my father, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, to suddenly change his expression. He looked worried. Fearing I might lose the protection of the Smith family. Henry smiled and said, George, you've done an excellent job. When I take over your position, I'll bring the company to greater heights. Thank you for setting up such a great foundation. I glanced at him. Yes, this fantastic start was all thanks to the years I spent building it. I helped the Smith family gain wealth and power, yet the Smiths only saw me as a loyal dog. Anna spoke softly, Henry, you don't need to thank him. The company's fortune is rising. When you take over, you'll be able to build your own empire. Henry smiled and said, no matter what the company situation is, I'll stick by you. We can enjoy the good times, but we'll endure the tough times together. Hearing Henry's words, I felt a sense of relief. I cleared my throat and continued, in the third quarter, the company lost $400 million. More than half of our warehouse leases expired and couldn't be renewed. Additionally, 5 banks are demanding their loans back early. Mr. Smith has fled abroad. The theme of today's meeting is to apply for the company's dissolution. Anna froze. Her smile faded, then disappeared, leaving her face pale. I sighed and said, Miss Anna, good thing you came today. Your father has run away. The creditors are outside. They're saying you have to pay them today. Anna completely lost the arrogance she had before. Grabbing my shirt, she trembled with anger. What the hell have you been doing? Our company was profitable before, why is it suddenly going bankrupt? Tell me. What happened? I watched her break down and smiled calmly. I've been diligently running business for your family, but you're right, I'm not capable enough. It seems I'll have to let Henry take this position. Yes, it's all about business. In the first quarter, everything was going smoothly with our collaborations with influencers. But by the second quarter, I realized that Mr. Smith had started to show signs of dementia. So I suggested the plan to create our own influencers to reduce marketing costs. I started a new company, aligned it with Smith Group's business. And told him it was a company set up for Anna. Mr. Smith, being selfish, was more than happy to take shareholders' money and line his own pockets under the guise of a partnership. Meanwhile, Anna, distracted by her pleasures, couldn't even be bothered to read the documents handed to her by the company. She simply signed them and took the money. She had already handed the company over to me. During the last period when Mr. Smith still had his faculties, he genuinely thought he was paving the way for his daughter, planning to remove me from the equation. In the second quarter, I pretended to be working, but behind the scenes, I was signing influencer deals left and right. By the third quarter, Mr. Smith had completely lost his sense, and under my operations, Smith Group began pouring excessive marketing funds into the new company, but with no return, yet they still ramped up production, sinking deeper into debt. Normally, such activities would have been impossible to conceal from other shareholders, but they were all on my side. To make something big, you must know how to give. Having worked with Smith and his daughter for many years, the shareholders were well aware of their selfishness and incompetence. After witnessing Mr. Smith's covert operations, they were even more determined to stand with me. I couldn't have done all of this alone. Behind me stood the support of the other 11 shareholders, minus Anna. Seeing her lose control, Anna helplessly turned to Henry for help. Henry frantically flipped through my documents. He quickly said, Anna, don't panic. The warehouse still has a large amount of unsold stock. And your family has decades of production lines and loyal customers. These are our assets. Once we clear these out, based on your and your father's share in the company, not only can we pay off the debts, but you'll still walk away with millions. Anna breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. I nodded, yes, today there will be talks with a new company about acquiring our business. Anna, growing desperate, turned and cursed at me, you useless fool, hurry up and make some coffee to welcome the other company's boss. I took her words and brewed a cup of coffee, placing it on the chairman's seat. Then I sat down and took a sip of my coffee. Anna, stunned, looked at me. You fool, what are you drinking? I replied, now, let's discuss the acquisition of your family's assets. Anna was first stunned, but quickly regained her composure. Through gritted teeth, she spat, so, you've already become someone else's lapdog, even helping them negotiate the acquisition of the company. Anna sat back in her chair, sneering, how much is your new master offering for it? I replied calmly. I've already had everything in the warehouse appraised. The production lines, remaining warehouse leases, and stable customer lists are valued at about $240 million. Henry's eyes lit up, and he eagerly turned to Anna, baby, sell all of it, pay off the debts, and you'll walk away with at least $100 million. Anna nodded, then turned to me. I don't want to talk to you. You don't even have the right to negotiate with me. Tell your master to settle the money now. Also, I have one condition. I raised an eyebrow. What condition? She said coldly. I want your new master to put it in writing, in Black and Smith, that you will never be the CEO. I froze for a moment, then replied honestly, I'm not the CEO of the company. It was the truth. I was the chairman of the new company, and the CEO position was reserved for my secretary, Alice. When Anna heard that I wasn't the CEO, she suddenly burst into laughter. George, things aren't going well for me, and now you're down too. You useless man, even if you lost the CEO position, you're still crawling to lick the boots of your new master. You're disgusting. I looked at her calmly. Are you done laughing? She waved her hand dismissively. You're no longer worth my laughter. $240 million, bring out the contract and let's sign. All the shareholders in the room exchanged knowing glances. Anna raised an eyebrow. What's with all of you? Why are you all studying the contract? I asked, did I ever say I'd offer $240 million? She froze. I continued, considering the depreciation of the production lines and the out-of-season stock, my company is offering $40 million. Anna slammed her hand on the table, furious. Is this how you negotiate? Fine. I'm not selling. There are plenty of companies who want to buy, and I don't need yours. She stood up in anger, about to storm off, but Henry grabbed her hand and turned to me. George, now I get it. Your company has no intention of buying. You're just desperate, trying to bully Anna. I smiled. So? He sneered. When we make a comeback, all the humiliation you've put Anna through today, I'll make sure you pay for it 100-fold. I'll deal with the creditors, and the Smith family, well, the dead camel is bigger than the horse. He pulled Anna closer, glaring at me. Ready to leave? I spoke coldly, hold on, this is a shareholder meeting. Whether you sell to my company or not isn't up to you, but a vote of the shareholders. Anna scoffed, do you really think anyone would agree to these terms? I said, all shareholders in favor of selling, raise your hand. One by one, all the shareholders raised their hands. Anna's face drained of color, and Henry nearly lost his balance, shocked by the sight before him. For major company decisions, the number of approving votes had to exceed 2/3 for it to pass. At this moment, it was 11-1. I smiled. It's passed. Let's sign the contract. Anna could no longer hold her temper. She exploded, throwing a tantrum in the conference room like a woman possessed. Are you all insane? $240 million worth of assets, and you're selling them for just $40 million? The shareholders, of course, agreed. The new company had been built from the ground up by us. And they had their own people or family members placed in the new company. Acquiring Smith Group was essentially just moving money from one pocket to the other, minus taxes. This was merely a process of eating away at the Smith family to repay them for all they had done to us over the years. Anna continued to curse, you bunch of bastards. My dad's the largest shareholder, he has veto power. She was foolish, but Henry had clearly realized the situation. He stopped defending Anna and broke out in a cold sweat. I said. Mr. Smith has already fled the country. He's been blacklisted by several agencies. Do you think he's coming back to vote? The shareholders have the right to manage the company and cut their losses. Anna's face paled. I can vote in my father's place. The combined shares of the two of us are unmatched. I raised an eyebrow. Do you have a power of attorney? Mr. Smith has fled, not died. Why should his shares be passed down to you? At that moment, the door to the conference room suddenly swung open. A group of burly men walked in, their faces hardened. Clearly not people to mess with. These were Smith family's creditors. In his desperation to avoid the shareholders, Mr. Smith had resorted to private lending. His greed had ultimately become the final straw that broke the Smith family. I said, Miss Anna, after you take the money today, you'll be able to pay off the bank debts. But as for the $4 million owed to us, I'm afraid you won't be able to repay that. One of the large men suddenly burst out laughing, a cruel, guttural sound. She can repay it. We have plenty of channels to help her make $4 million. Henry's face grew darker and darker, and he began to shake. After a moment, he said, don't worry, we'll pay off these creditors first. The bank can wait. We'll just wait for your dad to come back. I placed the prepared contract on the table. Anna nervously scanned the document. Once she saw the details, her eyes shot up to meet mine. Party A. George? I smiled. Allow me to introduce myself. Starting today, I am the owner of Smith Group. And you're just a dog at my side. In the corner, Father was completely dumbfounded, his mouth agape in shock. With a sudden crash, Anna dropped to her knees. Even though she was as foolish as ever, at this moment, she understood her situation. She clutched my clothes, trembling as she begged, George, I was wrong. Everything before was my fault. Please, for the sake of how my family raised you, let me go, please. I sneered, you dare bring up your family's kindness? Anna, do you really not remember how your family treated me all these years? She cried out, but no matter what, I'm still your fiancé. 2 days ago, you were in my wedding suite, sleeping with this man. Fiancé? Do you even have the right to say that? Henry swallowed nervously, then turned to Anna and said, sign it. Don't beg him. Once we have the money, I'll find a way to get us out of the country. We can keep living the high life as rich. I chuckled. Even now, Henry was still focused on Anna's money. One by one, the shareholders signed the contract. I made a quick call to my secretary Alice, whispering, transfer the funds. Anna breathed a sigh of relief. She turned to the creditors, saying, wait just a moment. I have access to my father's card, and I have the passwords. Henry pulled her close, whispering back to me, remember, I'll make you pay for this 100-fold. Anna's previous tone of pleading disappeared. Now, gritting her teeth, she spat, George, you heartless bastard. Henry is far more talented than you. We'll make a comeback overseas, and we'll return to destroy you. You'll lose everything. I tapped my chin thoughtfully and then suddenly exclaimed, oh no. This is bad. Anna blinked in confusion. What's so bad? I smacked my forehead, pretending to be forgetful. How careless of me. Your dad's card, 3 months ago, I forgot to ask the finance department to process the repayment, and now it's been frozen by the bank. But don't worry, once the money arrives, the bank will immediately take it to clear the debts. I smiled, so, don't worry, you won't owe the bank anything anymore. Anna stumbled, unable to keep her balance, her face paling. The creditor furrowed his brows and asked, Miss Anna, does this mean you can't pay us the $4 million? Anna opened her mouth, but no words came out. Henry, seeing Anna's defeat, turned to leave. Anna grabbed his arm urgently, Henry, where are you going? Don't drag me into this. Henry shook off her hand, his voice cold. From today onward, we are completely done. But you said you'd stand by me through thick and thin. Now's not about whether things are hard or not. It's about life or death. Even married couples fly their separate ways when disaster strikes, so what do you expect from me? Anna seemed to lose all strength, crumpling to the floor in a heap. I smirked, Henry. You're not leaving either. He froze, then sneered, George, don't try to scare me. Let me put it bluntly, what's the big deal? I slept with your wife. I'm neither part of your company, nor do I owe any debts. I can come and go as I please. I watched Henry's arrogant face and smiled, I don't have any debts with you, but no matter what, Anna was once my fiancée. There are a few things I can help her settle. He raised an eyebrow. What things? I began, 3 years ago, she gifted you a Porsche 911. Now which could still fetch a good price secondhand. Then there's the watch you're wearing, I'm guessing she gave it to you. You couldn't possibly afford something like that yourself. Not to mention this expensive suit you're wearing. As a student on a public scholarship, how could you afford a high-end custom suit? Anna, who had seemed defeated, suddenly lifted her head, and a spark of hope gleamed in her eyes. She grabbed Henry's hand, speaking eagerly, yes. You can't leave. You need to return everything you've taken from me, the gifts, the transfers, everything. Henry was furious. Who asks for gifts back once they've been given? You bastard. After all these years I loved you, gave you so much, and now you're willing to watch me go down, but you won't even return what's mine. Anna stood up, her hand flying toward Henry's face as she yelled, I'm done with you. You're going to give everything back, now. What had once been a loving couple was now a full-on brawl. If anyone saw this, no one would believe this was a shareholder meeting. It looked more like a market fight. I sat in the chairman's seat, watching them struggle. Utterly amused. Henry wasn't holding back. He raised his fist and slammed it into Anna's face repeatedly. But how could Anna give up her last hope? Even if her nose bled, she clung to Henry, refusing to let go. Seeing that she was losing the fight, Anna quickly turned to the creditors, shouting, help me. If I sue him, I'll be able to get the money back and pay you all. The creditors paused for a moment, and then, to everyone's surprise, they grabbed Henry by the neck, lifting him up like a chicken. If they could reclaim the money through legal means. They certainly didn't want to waste any more time. Henry, fuming with rage, spat a thick loogie right in Anna's face and cursed, I've been playing along with you for all these years, and in the end, you want everything back. I've been played like a fool. Damn it, this is disgusting. Anna shot back, her face twisted with anger, you're the one who's disgusting. I even considered handing the family business to you, but in the end, you're the one with the real ulterior motives. I scratched my chin. Watching Anna fume with anger. It was quite amusing. Anna eventually paid off the debts. It was clear how much she had invested in Henry over the years. Former lovers, now enemies in court. In the end, the court ruled that Henry had to return all the property. The cars and goods could help Anna pay off about $2 million of debt, and through the investigation of transfer records, it was revealed that she had once transferred $8 million in cash to Henry. The problem was that after Henry hooked up with a rich wife, he spent money recklessly. And had already squandered it all. Even if the court ordered him to return the money, he didn't have the means to do so. At the final moment, Anna fully inherited her father's selfish nature. She sold her $8 million debt to the creditors. They readily accepted the offer to earn $800,000 without lifting a finger, knowing they could find a way to recoup the money. After acquiring Smith Group's production lines, clients, and merchandise, I immediately launched a marketing campaign. I turned the goods into cash, cancelled existing contracts, and signed new agreements with influencers suitable for our new line of mid-luxury goods. We had already perfected the business plan, and with Smith Group's customer base, the new company was quickly back on track. As for Mr. Smith, he had long since passed away abroad and wouldn't be returning. When I saw Anna again, I was sitting in a car. She stood by the roadside. She wore cheap clothes, stood there smoking a cigarette, and had heavy makeup on. But it couldn't hide the decaying condition of her skin. I signaled for the driver to stop the car and waved at her. She didn't recognize me at first, but when she did, she hurriedly ran to the car. As soon as she got in, I was hit by the strong, pungent smell of cheap cosmetics that clung to her. "Boss," she greeted, but then froze, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. I asked, "Why are you alone? Where's Henry?" "I don't know." She shook her head. "We haven't seen each other since the court ruling." I smirked. "I see. This job seems to suit you now." She tightened her grip on the hem of her dress, forcing a faint smile. At that moment, she seemed to blend into the memory of the Anna I once knew as a child. Anna whispered, "George, I'm really at the end of my rope. It's all my fault. If you can just forgive me, I'll even bow down and apologize. Please, can you take me in?" I said, "Do you remember that time Christmas when I wore a new outfit? And you made me get down in front of the whole class and let you ride me like a horse? You ruined my clothes." Tears fell from her eyes as she sobbed, "George, I'm sorry. When I got home, it was your mom who stitched up my clothes, stitch by stitch. Both you and your father are cold-hearted. After your dad's business took off, he dumped your mom. She treated you so well, yet for the sake of following your rich dad, even when she was suffering, dying, and wanted to see you one last time, you refused." Anna lowered her head, silent. I sighed. She was the only one in the Smith family who showed me warmth. If you and your father hadn't abandoned her, I would have repaid the kindness. Though the Smith family is gone, I'll still make sure I honor your mother. Come to the company tomorrow, I'll give you a position with a monthly salary over $10,000. I won't let your mother's daughter starve on the streets." Anna's eyes widened, and she quickly asked, "What position?" The next day, an important client was coming to negotiate a deal, so I had the driver pick him up in the Maybach. When we arrived at the company, as the doors opened, Anna stood at the entrance, draped in a welcoming sash, bowing respectfully, "Good morning, Mr. George." The client looked at Anna, puzzled. "This girl looks familiar, but I can't quite place her." I glanced at Anna and couldn't help but chuckle. Just a loyal dog, not someone whose name is worth remembering.